think I'm going to be doing this a lot here. Going to go back to the day when I was giving a real... Assuming I don't turn it off. Okay. I want to give another big hand for Theory of Evolution. Since that song was just the here and now today. Okay, we actually have today, we're very honored actually, being that this is the 200th anniversary of Darwin Day. It's kind of a big deal. And it's also the 150th anniversary of the first publication of Origin of Species, because Darwin conveniently waited until he was 50 to do it. So that makes all the numbers work out. It's very nice. Brian Marlow is a science comedian who has been interested in science ever since he was 10. He has been performing as a comedian in one form or another for decades. He asked me to mention that he has CDs for sale, so I'm doing that. I think it's pretty clear, obviously, the CDs are over back in the corner, as you can see. I want to mention some of the things he's done. He's performed on CBS, A&E, Tech TV, and the Discovery Channel. He has performed for Microsoft, Apple, Dell, the American Chemical Society, the National Institute of Standards, and what's the T stand for, Brian?
Technology.
Technology, thank you. And the National Academy of Sciences. Truly an impressive array. We're extremely lucky to have him here today, so let's give a hand to science comedian Brian Marlow.
Thank you, Liam. I can't believe I have to follow the theory of evolution. That's a tough act to follow. I'm the kind of comedian, even though I've been a stand-up comic for a long time, and I've opened for some somewhat famous people like Dennis Miller and Craig Ferguson and Kenny Loggins, but I'm the kind of comic that's a little more excited about opening for Michael Shermer. And I'm not saying that just to suck up to you. But it seemed to have worked that way. So I haven't always been a comic. I used to be an astronomer, but I got stuck on the day shift, which sucks. You don't discover anything good. A cloud, great. And I'm sorry, I know that joke could be offensive to solar or radio astronomers. I'm aware of that. They work on the day shift by choice. Isaac Asimov once said, "The most exciting phrase to hear in science, the one that heralds new discoveries, is not eureka, but that's funny." Have we got any Isaac Asimov fans here? Yeah. I would say that Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke were bigger influences on me than George Carlin or Richard Pryor in terms of shaping my sensibilities. I grew up liking their science fiction. I found they wrote a lot of science fact, and that their nonfiction was at least as much fun and exciting. And I think that was probably my early introduction into science. And if you're like me, and I think if you're in this room, you are to some degree, and I apologize for that. I don't think it's my fault. But if you like science, it's hard to understand why more people don't. Because it's so fundamental, it's so basic, it's so fundamental to who we are as humans. It's just, how can you peer out of those tiny holes in your skull with anything but curiosity? And that's all science is, right? Satisfying our curiosity, asking those basic questions. You know, who are we? Where are we going? How much will it cost? Will I be expected to tip? And I've always been a curious kid. At least that's what the neighbors said. I think they meant well. I remember when I was about 10 years old, I asked my dad, "Why is the sky blue?" It's a pretty natural question for a little 10-year-old scientist. My dad said, "Go ask your mother." So I thought, great, she knows. So I went off in search of my mom, and I really felt like I was experiencing the scientific method, like I was following in the footsteps of Galileo and Newton. And I found my mom, and I asked her, "Mom, why is the sky blue?" And I'll never forget her answer, "Because I said so." At first I was in awe of my mom. Later I learned not to trust her in matters of science. Now here, this is really nice. We're in a room full of people that we have a worldview that we don't accept "because I said so" as an answer to our questions. And obviously there are other worldviews that will accept that. And, what's wrong with questions? That's the thing is like, we're okay with questions. We're okay with not knowing some things. In fact, questions are wonderful things. Questions open up whole new fields of discovery. So we're okay with questions. And maybe there are some things that we're never going to even get answers to. The very most basic cosmological question, why is there something instead of nothing? Yeah. I have a theory, it was a tax write-off. It was more beneficial to have a universe than not have a universe. And it was designed to fail, and we'll see what happens there. So I don't know, but I'm okay with questions. Like I can't, just because we don't know where all this came from, I've never been able to believe in a supreme being. Maybe maybe a deluxe being. Yes, I can see that. Maybe a being with extra cheese. But that's, I think, about as far as I can push it right there. So I gotta say, I'm a little conscious of my posture. Always have been, as long as I've been getting on stage. I think it's because when I was a kid, my mother used to tell me to stand up straight. Did you ever get that from your mom? It's very standard, pretty universal. Almost as if mothers have been programmed to tell their children to stand up straight. I think mothers have been telling their kids that for longer than we realize. Perhaps even to pre-human days. What if that were the driving force behind the evolutionary trend to walk erect? Can you see that? Mothers nagging their children up the evolutionary ladder. Stand up straight. Don't drag your knuckles when you walk. What, are you born in a tree? Do you want the other families to think we're not evolving? How many times do I have to tell you? That would be the origin of mathematics. You're like, They say apes are our closest cousins, but we never have them over. That's not cool. So this year is a big year for science. It is 150 years since The Origin of Species was published. And Darwin would have been 200, Darwin and Lincoln, both born February 12th, 1809, both would have been, in a couple days, 200 years old. Yeah, it's sad when they're taken from us so young. But The Origin of Species, I'm almost, as much as I love to read science books, do you like to read science books? For fun? Read books as fast as I buy them. I hoard books. I hoard books like on some level I know there's a coming apocalypse and my library will be essential to kickstart civilization. Do you ever wish for that thing? At the point of purchase, don't you just wish the information could be uploaded right to your brain? Yeah. Which is all we're doing when we're reading, right? We transfer the information from one storage device, the book, into this storage device, the original iPod. And you just wish that it could be a little, I just want to pick up the bit rate, transfer it a little faster. But I am almost embarrassed to say, that I just finally started to read The Origin of Species. So has anyone here read it? Of course. Now don't tell me how it ends. Let me have a little suspense. Actually, it doesn't end. Isn't that the key to it? It doesn't end. We're not the point of evolution. We're not the end product, the final destination. We're just one of the latest chapters in an ongoing story. So, I just read something interesting. It was a news story. This sort of thing happens pretty much every year, and it always fascinates me. This one was about a kid in a state park in Colorado who got killed by a mountain lion. His parents let him run ahead. They came around a corner and they saw their child being mauled to death by a mountain lion. And that is pretty outside our experience, for the most part. To be killed by a predator doesn't happen very often. Unless you get drunk and climb a fence at the zoo, you're usually okay. But I could imagine